You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 140. Do you have body dysmorphia, or is it weight bias? I'm your host, Vinnie Wellsby. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Hello, welcome to this episode. So pleased to see ya. How you doing? Is life okay? My life's good. I just bought a B-day. Oh, life is amazing with a B-day. Or as some folks call it, a bidet. Bidet. I think that's more of an American thing to say, bidet. I got it from Tushy. You might have seen the adverts around the place. And I got it on sale for 96 American doll hairs, and it's normally like, I don't know, $150. It's the one with hot water as well as cold water spray up your bum hole. And just like an FYI, if anyone wants to buy one, I was worried about so if you look at the thing, it's a Tushy bidet. Now that I'm saying it, your device is probably hearing me say it, and it's going to advertise it to you. I don't know if that's true, but anyway, there's like, you stick it on your toilet, and there's like a box that comes to the side, and I was like, well, I'm going to sit on the box. I know, because my bum is bigger than the toilet seat, and it's going to hit the thing. But on the Tushy thing, when you put it onto the seat, it goes underneath the seat, underneath the bottom of the seat. It actually has like snake eye type slots where you can slide it across. And so I slid it across, and so it's not center on my toilet, but it actually looks center, but so that the box was slightly to the right even more. And so my almost doesn't, I guess it can touch it a little bit, but almost doesn't touch it. And so if you are bigger than me, so I'm a US size 20-ish, and obviously everyone's leg and bum width is different. And it's a control panel. That's what I'm talking about. It's a control panel. So if you're worried about that, then you have a little bit of adjustability on that. And I mean, I've had it for a day. I installed it yesterday. I felt like a plumber extraordinaire installing it. Like, yeah, pretty, it was, relatively easy. And my water pressure in this apartment is so strong. So when I first used it, I was like, holy shit! It's like, when you watch those videos on YouTube of people doing power washing, and they're power washing like the pavement or whatever. And my water pressure is so high, that's like what my bidet is. It's obviously not that extreme, but yeah. So so if I need to power wash my asshole, then there you go, and you can like wiggle around and do other areas too. So I was like, finally, because I have IBS, and I was like, I don't want to be like wiping my bum hole all the time, and so this is an alternative. So yeah, anyway, a little bit of bidet news for you. Yes. And so today, and by the way, hey, if I've not told you this already, I have told you this already, but if you don't remember telling me this, and if you've not done it, there's a browser extension called Honey. Listen, I'm not sponsored by Tushy or Honey. You could probably if you can't get the Tushy in your area for a good price, and just get something off Amazon that's cheaper, right? Whatever. But there's this browser extension called Honey. It's free, and it will pop up. You install it, and then it pops up when you're at a checkout. So often, I'll get a discount. So the Tushy was actually cheaper, because then the Honey popped up, and it was like some random discount code that I wouldn't have known about if it wasn't for Honey. They're probably like selling my data to someone else, and I don't know, I got a cheaper B-Day, and I gotta get cheaper clothes shopping and cheaper almost everything. The only thing it doesn't work on is DoorDash, so food delivery, because they're like, we're onto your shit, honey. You can't use, it doesn't work here. Yeah. Anyway, so get honey if you haven't already. Not sponsored. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about body dysmorphia disorder today because I've never actually spoken about it, which is, I'm surprised I haven't. What it is, how is it related to weight bias? Is it caused by weight bias? Is it totally unrelated? And as well, because, you know, we are in the world of body positivity, and a lot of folks say, just love yourself, I did it, so can you. And then you look at them and they're thin and conventionally attractive and neurotypical and white and non-disabled and rich, and, and it's like, well, yeah, I wonder why you learned to be able to love your body. Yeah. And so, like, is it as simple as choosing to stop hating yourself, or could there be actually something else going on? And I think sometimes if you're really struggling with really disliking your body, then there could be something else going on. So body dysmorphia, I am going to go to the DSM-5. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and so it's in there. It was in the number 4, and I don't know when it was in there before, but it is a obsessive compulsive. The class of it is obsessive compulsive disorder, and this is from the DSM-5. A preoccupation with one or more perceived defects or flaws in physical appearance that are not observable or appear slight to others. At some point during the course of the disorder, the individual has performed repetitive behaviors. Example, mirror checking, excessive grooming, skin picking, reassurance seeking, or mental acts. Example, comparing DSM, why are you not gender inclusive? Comparing his or her or their, comparing their appearance with that of others in response to the appearance concerns. The preoccupation causes clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other areas of function. The appearance preoccupation is not better explained by concerns with body fat or weight in an individual whose symptoms meet diagnostic criteria for an eating disorder. So this is not an eating disorder because of worrying about being fat or worrying about weight. It's related to an obsessive compulsive type of disorder. So, and we've also got muscle dysmorphia, and that's they say the individual is preoccupied with the idea that their body build is too small or insufficiently muscular. This specifier is used even if the individual is preoccupied with other body areas, which is often the case. Also, here we've got indicate degree of insight regarding body dysmorphic disorder beliefs. So some people might have fair insight, poor insight, or delusional beliefs in regards to their bodies. And so with good or fair insight, the individual recognizes that the body dysmorphic disorder beliefs are definitely or probably not true, and that they may or may not be true. With poor insight, the individual thinks that the body dysmorphic beliefs are probably true. And with absent insight or delusional beliefs, the individual is completely convinced that the body dysmorphic beliefs are true. So that's a lot of that's from the DSM, right? And so here's kind of the layman, what it is. And so it's a mental health condition where someone spends a lot of time worrying about their, quote, flaws or their perceived flaws. And anyone can have BDD, but it's mostly, it's more common in younger people, so teenagers and young adults. Affects all genders, and it's not about being vain or self-obsessed. It can be something that has a really big impact on your life and can even lead to suicide. So It makes people feel embarrassed, ashamed, and anxious, and they may avoid social situations. And so there's a lot of that repeated checking the mirror or grooming or seeking assurance for many hours a day. So the symptoms, and so I'm just going to list out the symptoms here. I'm going to include links to everything that I'm quoting from. This is the symptoms here. Being extremely preoccupied with a perceived flaw in appearance that others can't see or appears minor. Strong belief that you have a defect in your appearance that makes you ugly or deformed. Belief that others take special notice of your appearance in a negative way or mock you. Engaging in behaviors aimed at fixing or hiding the perceived flaw that are difficult to resist or control, such as frequently checking the mirror, grooming, or skin picking. Attempting to hide perceived flaws with styling, makeup, or clothes. Constantly comparing your appearance to others, frequently seeking reassurance about your appearance from others, having perfectionist tendencies, seeking cosmetic procedures with little satisfaction, and avoiding social situations. And so with BDD, it seems to be that you focus on maybe one body part more than others. And the most common areas are face, nose, complexion, wrinkles, acne, or blemishes. Then it's hair, it's appearance, thinning and baldness, skin and vein appearance, breast size, muscle size and tone, and genitalia. So I am here thinking about this from I'm thinking about this from like a social justice issue. So this is a mental health condition, right? And I'm thinking about the other thing, the definition of atypical anorexia in the DSM. And there's anorexia and there's atypical anorexia. Atypical anorexia is the exact same as anorexia, but there's a weight. There's like anorexia and atypical. Atypical is for fat people, because we have to create a whole separate thing, because it's the only thing in the DSM which has a weight limit to it, which is hopefully going to change, because it doesn't matter what your weight is. If you have an eating disorder, you have an eating disorder, right? And so with this, talking about the symptoms, and it's all kind of like perceived flaw and not noticeable to others. And I wonder about who decides, body image standards, right? Who decides that nose is too big? Who decides that skin is not good, that someone weighs too much, etc., right? Like, there are these things that are influenced by outside forces. And what if the person who has BDD is fat, and they are extremely preoccupied with the quote, flaw of their fatness? Would that be encouraged? And the answer is, for some folks, it has been. I know when I was in eating disorder world, when I went into the doctors and had lost a lot of weight, of course he was like, oh my God, keep doing what you're doing. What am I doing? Not eating enough food, having an eating disorder. So with when we're thinking about weight stuff and we're thinking about body image standards, this kind of gets a little bit more cloudy, not in regards to the person feeling this way, but maybe the way that we treat folks who have BDD as, if they're conventionally attractive, perhaps perhaps folks would say, you're just being so vain. There's nothing wrong with you. Get over it. And so not being sympathetic or understanding that it's a mental health condition. And with folks who have, quote, big quotes here, real flaws, whether that be being slightly chubby or having parts of themselves which is not the white European standard of beauty. So maybe having a bigger nose or darker skin, for example. Would that obsession with those areas be more encouraged? If someone was very, very fat, someone was a supersized fat person, and their whole life was about them thinking about their fatness, would a therapist, psychologist, whoever say, oh my goodness, they're really preoccupied with this thing? Because if the therapist sees that as a real flaw, then would they see that as then a negative behavior? It's just interesting, right? Yeah, so the prognosis, BDD, body dysmorphic disorder, usually doesn't get better on its own. If left untreated, it may get worse over time, leading to anxiety, extensive medical bills, severe depression, and suicidal thoughts and behavior. With most of everything, we don't really know what causes it. Who the fuck knows? There's different things that are risk factors, like having family history of it and having other mental health conditions like depression or OCD. Yeah, but no one's really sure. Treatment for BDD is going to therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and sometimes also medication like SSRIs. Sometimes people will need to go into inpatient treatment. So with CBT, it says it's the only psychological treatment that's been proven and supported by research, but it can be hit and miss, and it focuses on changing the thought and behavior patterns triggered by the condition. Your therapist will help you identify situations that cause anxiety and develop healthier coping mechanisms. Through CBT, you can learn to step outside of yourself and view your body through a more objective and forgiving lens. So, what about the intersection of BDD and anti-fat bias? So, is BDD informed by anti-fat bias? Are they completely separate? So, let's hear from some people who have BDD. So I don't have BDD, never had BDD, no experience with that myself. But I suspect a lot of people who are struggling with body image stuff, a lot of them people might have undiagnosed BDD. And with most mental health conditions, people are like, okay, so what's the difference between disordered eating and an eating disorder? What's the difference between not liking myself and having BDD or something else? And what therapists say is that it's how much it is affecting you and disrupting your life. So if you were like, I don't like my body, and because of that, I think that if I walk into a restaurant, everyone's going to be staring at my nose and thinking it's too big, and they're going to be laughing about my nose. And in fact, I don't want to go out all day long. I spend thinking about my nose. I look at my nose in the mirror all the time. I got plastic surgery, and that's still I don't think my nose is right. So I'm going to get another procedure, and I constantly need validation from people telling me that my nose is okay. So see how that is, that's a lot. That's kind of like taking over someone's life. Whereas like the difference would be like, yeah, I don't like my nose and I don't feel comfortable, seeing it in pictures. And if I could afford it, I guess I'd have surgery, but it's It's one of those things. I don't love it, but I'm going to get on with my life. I'm not going to stop living, but I might, be a little bit conscious of it. And so that probably wouldn't be to the extent of having full-blown BDD. But that doesn't mean that that's not also, not a great feeling and sucks, right? And also therapists, a lot of folks don't like having to label people. But in case you're curious about that, and it's the same with things like, do I have an eating disorder or disordered eating? And it's kind of like, how much does it affect your life? What's going on? Yeah. So let's go to Reddit. Oh, the body dysmorphia community on Reddit. So there was a discussion there that I enjoyed looking at. And so the discussion was, the title of it, Body Dysmorphia is a Form of Fat Phobia. So the person says, so I saw this similar topic in a sub for eating disorders, which I also follow, and I wanted to know your thoughts. I saw a popular tweet recently that said that body dysmorphia was actually fat phobia. So I'm just going to pause here and say what we've got is two separate things. The first statement is body dysmorphia is a form of fat phobia. And then the second line here is body dysmorphia was usually fat phobia. I tried to find the original tweet thing. This is from a year ago. I couldn't find it. So I'd love to know what it actually said. So we've got kind of two definitions of what it said. Body dysmorphia is a form of fat phobia, and body dysmorphia was fat phobia. Okay, so the person continues, this is wrong on so many levels, and it has loads of likes. How I perceive my body is no way affects how I see others' bodies, because mainly it's not just my body, it's every inch of detail I perceive to be wrong, no matter what my weight is. I've never once projected my body issues on to another person. I only perceive myself as disgusting. Do you agree? So one of the first comments is, I'm not sure if the term fat phobia is used as a term for irrational fear of body fat in oneself or others, or the social stigma of fatness. Regardless, it isn't a diagnosable disorder. This is correct. So fat phobia isn't in the DSM. Because, and so this is interesting because, even the word fat phobia, so fat phobia is kind of falling away a little bit. Some folks in the community and also some folks in the disability rights community say that we shouldn't be using the word phobia because phobia is actually a mental health condition. And really what we're talking about is hate from a social justice standpoint in regards to hate of a group. And so some folks will say, okay, we need to use the word, fat hate, anti-fat bias. Others say, for some folks, it definitely is. It definitely is to that level where they are obsessed and they really are afraid and anxious, and it ruins their lives thinking about being fat and getting too fat. And so I think, using different words for different situations of, when I think about the troll on the internet who says, fuck fat people, that person is obviously hates fat people and they are steeped in anti-fat bias. And, anti-fat bias could be used for individuals too, absolutely. But I also, because I've seen it, right? I've seen it with clients, that palpable kind of so powerful, deep fear of fatness meaning something about them as a person. I chat to people, I'm like, what does it mean to be fat? Like, what does it mean about you? And never have I heard that it means, it just means I have a bigger body. And these are from people who are struggling, right? This is not from, people who are recovered from fat phobia, or anti-fat bias. It is, I'm a bad person, I'm a failure, I'm lazy, I don't have my shit together, I am unattractive, I'm unhealthy, I'm embarrassing, and like the list goes on. And so but then also, is it kind of like when you think of a phobia, like a lot of times we think of people being, screaming and running away and avoiding certain parts of life to avoid that phobia. And so I don't think folks are not having that reaction of like, being terrified and running away, but in other ways they are terrified. So I just find it really interesting to think about. So anyway, continuing. So this person says, regardless, it isn't a diagnosable disorder. That is correct. I think it would fall under different things. So BDD, on the other hand, is a recognized mental disorder with diagnostic criteria and treatment recommendations. There is literature and studies. Yes. Also, a key feature in BDD is its connection to OCD and the fact that people seem to have issues with reading faces properly. I don't know what someone would be hoping to achieve by trying to muddy the waters on what BDD is, but know that if it's true, recognized and diagnosable disorder, and no stranger on the internet has the authority or capacity to define it as something that hasn't been accepted and replicated by the scientific community. So I guess what this person is hearing is the person who made the original tweets, who I can't find the source, but that they were saying BDD isn't real, that you just need to learn to love fatness, and you would not have BDD. I don't think that this is the first person's the first person to comment. That's what they're reading from that post. I'm reading something different because I've got obviously a different perspective. I didn't read it as BDD isn't real. I read it as BDD has a big fat phobia component, something like that. That fat phobia is a part of BDD, is what I've read, is from that thing. So I don't know. Someone commented, they're not seeing BDD as the compulsive thinking disorder that it is. Like, I'm sorry my brain got brainwashed by Instagram models and my boyfriend's porn watching history, and now I have a compulsive tick in my brain that tells me I should hate myself for not being an Amazonian goddess from the islands. So this person is saying that they got brainwashed by Instagram models and their boyfriend's porn watching history. And so that goes back to, okay, so why is the boyfriend watching certain porn with probably very unrealistic depictions of humans, right? And Instagram models, like, I'm presuming that this person doesn't say it, that they're thin Instagram models, right? And so why is it that we are holding thinness up? And so would this be the same if this person happened to have grown up in a fat positive household? I don't know, this is a mental health condition, right? And that can, as we know from before, we don't really know what causes it. But, if we lived in a fat positive society, would it have shifted into, perhaps I'm not fat enough, or some other perceived flaw? Because if we lived in a fat positive society, you bet, capitalism is going to create something else for us to hate ourselves, right? It'll be like, your earlobes are too long. Oh, gross. Have you seen your earlobes? Look at these Instagram models and their perfect earlobes. It'd be something of, something else that we'd be focusing on, no doubt. A lot of the other comments are like people saying that their body dysmorphia is centered around their face, and so it's got nothing to do with fatness. So someone else said, I think I saw the same tweet and it annoyed me a lot. They say the same about eating disorders and how you can, quote, cure your eating disorder by confronting and dealing with your internalized fat phobia, which is absolute bullshit. It also simplifies BDD to be just about thinking you're bigger than you are, forgetting that people have different types of BDD, facial, muscle, etc. Some people are very insecure about how thin they are too. It really annoys me when people make someone else's mental illness about themselves. So with that response, they say the same things about eating disorders, how you can cure your eating disorder by confronting and dealing with your internalized fat phobia. So with eating disorders and with BDD, disorders that focus on body and food, they are not created in a bubble, right? They are informed, exactly what we were just talking about. Even if we live in a fat positive society, there'll be something else, right? There'll be some other focus that society says we need this, and some folks will struggle with that because of mental illness. Mental health conditions can be informed by the society we live in, right? And I'm not saying created or anything, but we are complex individuals, and so understanding, like with an eating disorder, that it's not made in a vacuum. Where is this coming from? Why do we think that eating certain foods or not eating certain foods or having a smaller body, or et cetera, is better or worse? And also what else is going on? Right? What else is going on? And so I think personally that they're intertwined, right? I don't think that BDD is like a manifestation of fat phobia. I don't think so. But I think what we are focused on is informed by a society that says thinness is better, that says whiteness is better, that says being non-disabled is better, that says European beauty ideals is better, etc., right? It can't not be, because we've got these beautiful brains that are like, I want to fit in. And there's a mental health condition going on too. This one person says, I agree that it doesn't have to do with fat phobia, and this is total misunderstanding of the disorder. My own body dysmorphia is triggered, intensified by a lot of different things, many of them having nothing to do with body fat. If I feel that a certain haircut alters the way that I look in a way that is out of alignment with how I feel about myself, this causes the same level of distress and ways of thinking that have more body fat than I want does. Same with having less body fat than I want, or less muscle, or more muscle, or clothing that doesn't suit me, or makeup that doesn't look like the way I want it to, etc. It's not about one specific aspect of the body, like fat. And I don't dislike body fat on other people, or even on myself. It's the way I want it to be. I'm attracted to a lot of people who would probably be considered O-word. If I felt that having more body fat wasn't in line with how I feel about myself, then I would want more. Body dysmorphia, to me, has to do with something about the body not being in alignment with the spirit, and an obsessive compulsive desire to make it come into alignment, and fear that you won't be able to, which causes excessive worrying, fixation on, and magnification on all things that are, quote, wrong. I think there's definitely a component of lack of body acceptance and body positivity, and being exposed to fat phobia can exacerbate it. But most people I know with body dysmorphia are not fat phobic and are generally body positive towards everyone but themselves. For me, I often feel like I'm the only one with a fucked up body. I see everyone else, skinny, fat, muscular, etc., as having, quote, normal bodies. Body dysmorphia tells me that mine is not, and everyone will notice that it is not normal. I know that it's distorted thinking, but your mind makes it real. Someone else's comment says, I know there's an immense amount of shame around this disorder, but I think it can be a positive thing to really look critically at the way BDD affects not only our perception of ourselves, but others. And I think the truth for most of us is that we do value appearance more highly than others, and we do notice and make judgments based on that. Those judgments are much, much more centered on self than others. And I can't speak for everyone, but I think most people with BDD are noticing flaws in others. However, I think that we are much more forgiving of these flaws in our loved ones than ourselves. I don't know about y'all, but a big part of BDD for me is that I feel inherently unworthy in a way that I don't feel about anyone else. So I hold myself to an appearance standard that is higher than my loved ones because I believe if I could reach that, I would be worthy like them. Something I think here as well is it sounds like a lot of folks with BDDs, they're focused on themselves, right? And these perceived flaws in themselves. And weight bias, as we've discussed in the podcast before, is there's the different levels of bias, and it can be interpersonal, intrapersonal, institutional, and ideological, right? And so you can have a ton of weight bias, and that could be something that you're just throwing onto yourself. And that's a lot. I see that a lot is fat folks saying, I think other fat people are good and great and wonderful, but not me. And so I can see then they're further along in their journey of unlearning fat phobia, and then the next step is to understand it and accepting it themselves as a fat person and their body and all that type of jazz. And so the step before that is thinking other fat folks are unattractive as well as themselves. Right. And so it's so easier to extend grace and compassion and humanity to other people but when it comes to ourselves, no, we're pieces of shit. Right. And so I think that some of these comments are kind of missing that we can still think fat people are great. And also we can still hold weight bias towards ourselves and still hold internalized privilege if they have small bodies. And I wonder, like, in the future, if the DSM is going to have some type of thing about fear of fatness. I don't know. Yeah, so I mean, I wonder, like, how you're feeling. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? Are you kind of seeing that, oh yeah, actually, I thought that I just needed to kind of unlearn fat phobia and I could learn to love myself. But turns out, from what you're saying, Vinny, that there might be something else going on alongside or separate from struggling with anti-fat bias. And or maybe you might be like, yeah, you know what, I think I should just see how it goes unlearning fat hate and see if that helps, and that might be valid for you. So I think that our society helps inform what an imperfection, quote, is, and fat phobia is part of our society. Also, here's another thing to think about, is that there could be something else at play. So, for example, that there was that one comment of saying about their haircut not feeling right. One time a trans person asked me, do I have gender dysphoria or do I have fat phobia? And I was like, I don't know. It's complicated. Do we live in an anti-trans society? Do we live in a fat-phobic society? Does not being able to be your true self and look the way that you want as a trans person also cause dysphoria? Yes, like yes to all of that. But what I do know is that we all hold anti-fat bias. Everyone, even me. It might be, layers and layers and layers deep that I've excavated, but there'll be stuff that pops up and I'll be like, oh, hello, anti-fat bias. There you are. So we can't ignore unlearning that shit. And if that helps with how you feel about your body, wonderful. That's great. That's perfect. And if that's what you needed, perfect, great. Perfect, great. But also, it could be that you have something else going on that you would benefit from going to therapy for, if that is available for you. And I also think that with the CBT that folks do in therapy and the treatment that people who have EDs go through, that there should be a lot of support in normalizing a variety of bodies. And we know that in a lot of eating disorder treatment places, there is you should put on weight, but not too much. You don't want to get fat. And I think that's deeply unhelpful for people who are afraid of being fat and getting fat and being out of control, right? So I think unlearning systems of oppression is always going to be helpful in many places in our lives. And I think here, particularly so. And as well, like when I say systems of oppression too, it's like, you're focused on, your nose not being the right shape or your skin doing this or whatever. And it's like, where does that ideal come from? Is it just something that your brain has just picked out of nowhere? Or has it been informed by other things? If it has been informed by other things, can we help our brains support them in getting new beliefs about big noses being absolutely boss and fatness being cool and thinness being cool and not having muscles or having a big belly or whatever it is, that's just a normal part of having a body and it's all great, And my story was, like I mentioned, I don't have BDD. I never did. My story was that a lot of my body hate was fat hate. Like I didn't like myself and it fucked with my life in a big way. But it wasn't to that, as we mentioned with BDD, that kind of obsessive and the checking and all that type of stuff. And I personally just needed to be educated on weight science and detangle my fat phobic thoughts. And that was really, really helpful for me. And it, made it so that I just was like, yeah, I've got a body, whatever. But that's because I didn't have a mental health condition related to this. I mean, it had other stuff going on, but not particularly, related to my body and the way that I viewed it. So, I mean, it's complicated. And I want folks to be able to get support if they need it and if they can. And I know a lot of people probably can't afford to go to therapy. And I was looking at this one article. It was saying kind of like things outside of therapy, even though they're saying therapy is the most helpful and the only thing that's evidence-based for BDD. There was another article that was on a eating disorder website. Was it Centers for Change? Yeah, Centers for Change. And they were saying things like unlearning. What word did they use? And I was like, oh, that's different. Fatism. I've never heard someone call it fatism before. Unlearning fatism. And unlearning diet culture, and I was like, oh shit, okay, Centers for Change, because normally at eating disorder places and maybe not as recognizing that type of thing. Yeah, let me see what the other things they said actually. The other things they say is accept genetics. Most of what you look like is determined by your genes. Understand that emotions are skin deep. And so if you're saying, I feel fat, it's not really about fat, even if you are fat. Question messages portrayed in the media. Yep. Recognize the influence of body misperceptions. In here they say, women are prone to more negative feelings about their bodies than men. In general, women are more psychologically invested in their physical appearance. Your body image is central to how you feel about yourself. Probably because women are objectified to the max. Research reveals that as much as a quarter of your self-esteem is a result of how positive or negative your body image is. And they say that there's this distortion in the way that a lot of people can view themselves. And they say befriend your body. So do like body image work. So, I mean, I'll link to that in the show notes. It's fiercefactory.com/0140. So go check that out. And I mean, even if you do have BDD, I think there's no harm in also, well, I mean, I think when I say no harm, I think it's a good idea to also try and unlearn any fat hate that you've got simmering there. If that's something that you can identify. And sometimes it takes time, right, to recognize how we are fat phobic. It can take, doing some of this work first, maybe with a therapist, and then being like, oh shit, yeah, that's why I think that. And it can take time to unearth those biases that come up. So yeah, what do you reckon? Do you feel like you kind of recognize any of those symptoms, those signs? Or do you think that, are you feeling good? Are you feeling good about your body? Are you just here for the fat politics? Like, what's going on? Who are you? Hey, it's something that I've been thinking about for like 6 months-ish. Is, I don't know if you've seen a few people going on holiday with their followers, their community, and a vacation, by the way, if you were like, what are you talking about? And so this company approached me called Trover Trip, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, and was like, oh, do you want to go on a vacation with your community? And I was like, yes, ? I don't know how I can make it work. I have a lot of hesitation. So my hesitations were that I want it to be fat positive experience, right? I don't want to be, because what they do is they will create the holiday. They handle everything. They book the itinerary. They pick where you stay. They book the van if you're going somewhere, the bus or whatever it's called. And like, is it going to be inclusive? And actually, they're really social justice focused. And so they've got a few places that are 100% inclusive. They've also got places inclusive for folks with disabilities. And also they've got places which they call body positive. And then you can, I can say, okay, so we're thinking about going and doing a, I don't know, pottery class or scuba diving or whatever. Go and ask your people on the ground, are there going to be seats that fat people can use? Are there wetsuits that come in this size? Are there life jackets what sizes do they come in, etc., etc.? And they were like, yeah, that's literally what we do. I was like, oh shit, okay. So I've been waiting for my PR card to come back from the Canadian government. It should have been back like 5 months ago. I was going to go surprise my sister in the summer because she had a baby human come out of her, and I was going to go and surprise her and terrify her and rip her stitches and all that type of stuff. But my thing hasn't arrived, and so I'm going to go for Christmas anyway. Blah 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 is what I'm saying is I am going to send out a survey to see where people want to go. If you want to go, where in the world you would like to vacation, what types of things would you like to do? Do you even want to go with me? I'm like, no one would want to go with me. And some people are like, yeah, they would. And I'm like, I don't know. And I was thinking like the theme could be fat joy. And it, us just being fat and being fucking amazing. And not necessarily people who are not necessarily like you have to go out there and wear 2 Doritos to cover your nipples and flash everyone your fanny. Just say like, hey, we're fat people and we're just living life, even though we might be scared, even though you might be anxious about going to the beach, even though it's scary to meet new people. We're going to do it anyway, and we're not going to let the way that society views fatness stop us, or the way that we're viewing our own fatness stop us. And I think that would be really amazing. Fat joy. Just maybe like, fuck it, we're fat. Fuck society who says that fat folks can't be amazing. and just hang out with each other and just have some fun. And I was thinking, I was talking to Lauren, Feel Good Dietitian. We work together on stuff. I do coaching in her program. She's great, by the way. And she went to Italy. She took her people to Italy, and she said that she did like almost an activity every single day. And sometimes some days they had activities in the morning. They'd be driving in a bus somewhere, and then an activity in the evening, la la la. And I was like, I just want it to be a bit more chill, more kind of like beach time. You know, maybe like a day at the beach, and then the next day a pottery class, or the next day in the one that I'm looking at is sunset scuba diving boat tour. Oh, how cool would that be? And then, you know, relax at the beach, and then an evening dinner out. And I think, you know, make it more relaxed, and so we can not having to run around everywhere. And also wanting to see what folks' mobility is and what people want to do, so that we are able to accommodate everyone. So I was on this call with other people who were doing it, and one of the people, because they work with lots of different people, one of the people was a CrossFit coach, and she was like explaining her vacation, and I was like, that sounds fucking awful. And she's like, we started the vacation by waking up at 5 a.m. to do some CrossFit, and I was like, oh no. And then she said at the end, which, I mean, fine, whatever. Look, some people love that, right? Even fat. I'm not saying fat people don't love CrossFit. Fat people can like CrossFit. Fat people can like waking up at 5 a.m. Whatever, you know, blah blah blah. But yeah. And then she says, oh, by the end, I thought we'd be working out every single day, maybe a couple of times a day. By the end, people were saying that they didn't want to work out anymore. I was like, because then her activity, she says, we had some really intense activities too, like hiking up mountains and stuff. And I was like, oh God, like I love a nice hike. I like, you know, doing these things, but I don't want to go on holiday to wake up and do a CrossFit session at like 5 a.m. Like, no. Not for me. It might be for some people, but that's the type of holiday that I don't want. So just FYI, if you are the kind of let's wake up at 5 a.m. to do a mountain hike and a you know, maybe like, you know, a nice walk in the afternoon or something like that, you know, a sipping margaritas by the pool, whatever. That's the type of thing. And, you know, going on some scuba dive, some snorkeling or whatever. Is it scuba or snorkeling? I don't remember. You probably have to train us for scuba. Anyway, so just an FYI, if you're even still listening to the episode, I don't know, I'm just here rambling on about shit. Okay, so let you go into the world and have a great rest of your day wherever you are. I hope you're okay and that you're feeling happy and good. And Honey is that name of the extension. Tushy is the name of the spray, the water hose spray that's connected to my asshole now forever. Yeah, I mean, people can come up to me and they could just inspect my asshole and be like, wow, do they have a bidet? Yes, they do. Look at that asshole. I'm going to eat my dinner off it. That's my life now. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I think about like if I was to be run over by a car today and people had to cut my clothes off, I'm always like, oh, I look so good, like, underneath my clothes today. Like, this underwear is so cute. They're going to be like, whoa. Or sometimes I'm like, oh, you know, I don't tend to have not nice underwear. I kind of like having nice underwear. Or, you know, like, I was like, oh, my pubes are all over the place today. If they, you know, it's just like, no one would even notice. Maybe they do. I don't know. If I have this accident, I don't know if nurses are going to be, you know, measuring the length of my pubes. Who the fuck knows? Because they definitely don't have better things to do than measure some random person's pubes. Be like, oh, look at their arsehole and be like, oh, definitely a bidet owner. Yeah. Is it just me that thinks about that? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So well, thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm going to see you in a while. Alligator. Stay fierce, fatty. Bye.